Zeev Likwornik, a policeman, a lawyer, the chairman of the board of an NGO named Sahar, an IDF officer in the reserves. Your kids know him as the one who will land a spacecraft on the moon. The father of 4 boys. Product manager cross-portfolio cloud and technologies. And you know him as the cloud guy. Please welcome Zeev Likwornik.
Hi there. I would like to speak to you today about capitalism 2.0. As you know, the social needs are vast. Lots of needs from society. You could see that there are needs related to health and nutrition and education and much more. You could try to address those with responsibility, doing well by doing good. But is it enough? Of course not. As you can see, the blanket is much too short. Responsibility does not and cannot feed all of the world hunger problems. And that is simply because capitalism is like democracy. It's not perfect, but it's the best system that we know. So naively, I thought, why won't we fix it? At the beginning of 2011, I've encountered with an amazing breakthrough Harvard Business Review article by a professor, not less known than Professor Clayton, a guy by the name of Professor Michael Porter, who is being known as one of the envisioners of the competitive strategy. He came to the market with a promise of creating shared value. And I'm going to discuss with you what does it mean. But before doing that, I must tell you that I decided to dive into that creating shared value. I joined the Shared Value Initiative, and I even had the pleasure, that was a real pleasure, to publish a little article, semi-academic, which I would be happy to discuss with you offline. In an essence, what it says that you could create shared value, you could increase, enlarge the blanket by further investing on information and communication technology development. As you can see here, this is the IDI parameter, which is ICT Development Index. The more you invest in information communication technology, the more you get in the Social Progress Index. The ones that are above the line are doing great. The ones that are below the line are not doing as good. And you can see Israel is not fully maximizing its relatively good position with ICT adoption. You can see the lagging behind countries, the developing one and the developed ones. And one of the major outcomes for this article and for the entire Creating Shared Value initiative is that you need to increase or enlarge the blanket in a sustainable way, in a way that would pay for itself, that would be scalable. And responsibility and simple volunteering, as you could all imagine, is not exactly that. So what's the way that could feed itself and be replicable and scalable? We are back to capitalism. Capitalism, and to that effect, firms themselves are the only known way in the history to create growth. If you think for a minute about what NGOs are doing and what governments are doing, they are taking a given pie and splitting it. The only way to enlarge the pie, to create the growth, enlarge the blanket, to feed more social needs is by capitalism themselves. It wouldn't be a big surprise to you that while I admire altruism, I'm not a great believer in that, simply because I do believe that it's not sustainable and not scalable. Every time with altruism, in the end of the day, there is what's in it for me. And before going to solve world hunger problem and fix capitalism worldwide, I figured out, reading the article of Creating Shared Value, that the idea is to focus on the core competency and tie it with the social benefits in order to create competitiveness that will feed itself. So I decided, as you can see, to put my money where my mouth is, and first do a transition of the Creating Shared Value that was initially came towards for firms and try it on myself as an individual. And I tell you what happened. First, I had a lot of load to carry. What I did, like any Israeli, I started by being responsible, simply volunteering as an officer to the army, and that's very common in Israel. Most of the male here are doing that, the Israelis one at least. Then I decided to become even more responsible, and I volunteered also to the police. The challenge there was what's in it for me. It was not sustainable and not replicable. So I decided that the business model, my individual business model, my capitalism of the altruism, if you wish, would be to focus on increasing my social capital. And by that, I thought I could gain the values that will keep it replicable and keep me in the system, help me feel not only appreciated, but feel that I get something from it. I'm a big believer of human networking and diversification. So I decided to look at my core competencies, apparently some says I have few, and leveraging those towards my, let's call it philanthropic work, in order to have it sustainable and replicable and scalable. So one that I figure out is that I do understand a little bit about business and economics, and I decided to churn from the military security thing, where I could be good, but it's not a relative advantage, and volunteer to an NGO by the name of BELLS, which is actually dealing with helping families balance their monthly budget and further improve their economical stage. By now I became also a team leader there. Then I became a board member in a Sahar, which is an organization that is actually saving lives by chats in the internet, preventing people from suicide and so on. Don't worry, I'm not on the psychological side. It's not my core competencies, but I tend to believe that I do understand a little bit about how to run those things. By now, I became the chairman of the board. Taking back from the individual stage and the experience I had from fixing myself, from being just responsible to find what's my business model and how to keep it sustainable and replicable, I took it to the society and business, and I want to explain to you what that creating shared value is all about. So firms can be responsible. Each one of us can go and paint. I'm not sure whether that's replicable. It's good, no doubt about that. All of the companies today, or most of them, has the corporate social responsibility, Amdocs including, but not all of them are by now fulfilling the creating shared value message. The story there is corporate social responsibility is once again about taking a pie, whatever pie the board or the CEO gives you, and split it. Creating shared value is about totally changing the strategy of the company, focusing on where the core competency of the company can help society. And I give you some example. It's about totally rebudgeting the budget, making business model. God forbidden, it's about profits, okay? Not just about splitting the pie. So companies that are following, creating shared value are profitable and doing that while improving society. One little example is a company by the name of General Electric, GE. They decided that they have they are using lots of water and lots of electricity, and they are spending lots of emission, polluting, and so on and so forth. So they decided the way that they are going to help society and help themselves by doing that, being profitable, they wrote a business model about that, is by reducing emission and reducing water use, and they succeeded, as you can, they succeeded, as you can see, to significantly improve revenues by doing that. They actually even brand a full line of products by the name of Ecomagination, where this line of products, you're right, by the way, this line of products is extremely successful within GE. I think that the one that endorses the most CSV globally is Nestle. We all know Nestle as a company that manufactures food. Actually, they rebranded themselves together, as you can see, to creating shared value, nutrition, water, and rural development. They took their entire process, everything they do, from where they buy their ingredients, how the farmers make their yield, and so on and so forth, and fix it everything. Just a little example, they decided that the world has a big problem with cholesterol, and they are focusing on reducing the cholesterol problem worldwide. Not because they could get such and such dollars per each product, but to externalize some of the value that they cannot fully capture. They understood that they need to help society, and they have a business model to doing that. They are profitable doing that. This is replicable, sustainable. They have lots of 38, I think, areas where they focus on. But back to us, what each one of you could do on the individual level and with your firms, Amdocs to that extent. First, identify your core competency as individual as well as a firm. Match it to a social cause, build the relevant business model around, and create shared value for a more sustainable growth and computing, and competitive, that's computing, cloud computing, competitive advantage. What about you in the new area of capitalism 2.0? Think about that. Please talk to me about that. Thank you very much.